What if thought leaders from around the university came together to discuss state-of-the-art remedies to 21st century challenges? From the Center for Online and Continuing Education, this is Faculty Lounge Live.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Faculty Lounge Live. My name is Nick Tracanna, and I'm a multimedia producer here at the Center for Online and Continuing Education. I'm here with Mahesh Neelakanta. He is the Director of IT at the FAU University Libraries. So if you want to introduce yourself a little further.
Yeah, my name is Mahesh, as Nick just mentioned. I work here at the FAU University Libraries in the IT department, and I'm also part of the AI task force, and I'm pursuing my PhD at the moment. And AI has been in the forefront. I figure I'd share some of my tools that I've learned to use, and looking for feedback as well from faculty so that they can learn from this and we can grow.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about coding more specifically with these AI tools.
Yes.
What do you have prepared for us today?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is actually focus on something called low-code development using ChatGPT, Gemini, and 2 or 3 other tools. This is a little bit different from the tools that a normal software engineer might use. We're not going to use Ruby or Python or other more complicated languages where you're developing an entire full application. Specifically, we're going to be using just plain HTML, CSS, and specifically JavaScript. Why do we use those? They are used in a web browser, and that makes it very easy to create these ideas and bring them to reality in a web browser, and allows you to iterate really quickly. And they're supported quite well in Gemini and ChatGPT, which many people are already using. And there are a few other tools that we'll also show that are online that take it to another level.
So this is more so catered to people without any programming experience.
That's exactly correct, yes. So I hope the audience here comes, if you have some software engineering background or coding background, great. If you have a business background or math background, even better. The idea here is, and you'll see the examples, we're not actually going to write a single line of code. We're going to talk to the large language model.
Yeah. And I have no coding experience, and we've been doing some things in preparation for this, so it's pretty interesting to see what you can do without any experience at all, just talking to these AIs. So yeah, I mean, we can go ahead and jump into the first example you have here, but
yeah, if we can switch to my screen. So part of what I'll have here is a couple of video demonstrations, and then we also have some live logins as well. As the audience is watching, if you can think of an idea in your discipline and perhaps consider it as a question towards the end, we can, if we have time, we'll have a live coding example, and we'll see how successful we get. Live demos are always an interesting idea. We'll see how far we get. Right here on my screen, actually, we'll just get started with a great demo. So I have a computer science background, obviously. So this is a very classic thing that you teach computer science students, which is sorting. How do you do sorting? And so I actually use Gemini here. I actually have Gemini Pro here logged in, and I simply said, build a HTML and JavaScript app that animates sorting algorithm, such as bubble sort, and use bars to represent. So it went ahead, did it. This is all stuff that it's kind of displaying behind the scenes. And then it comes up, and you can actually, now it has the capability, both Gemini and ChatGPT have the ability to visualize your output right away. So it created this web application, and I can click start, and it actually does the sorting and demonstrates it. I can actually speed it up to kind of show how this runs. I can even choose different algorithms, which I actually asked for it, and we'll see that in the video demonstration. And so this is a different type of sorting algorithm.
So you were saying before that this is a kind of key part of the computer science like learning objectives for sorting. Like that's kind of the foundation of a lot of this.
Sorting algorithms in general are used, and visualizing any algorithm always makes it much easier. And so seeing how this would work, normally you would use blocks and try and ideate through it. But here we just have a simple
automates
idea.
Everything.
And this is something that's already available on the web, but I wanted to show it as a simple starter.
Yeah, and just that it can be built through Gemini itself. Yeah.
A little bit more complicated one that we have here is actually a Tetris game. And again, it's a full Tetris that I can use, and I can play the game. And there's actually a bug. If you notice, it sticks wherever I drop it. It doesn't go all the way through. So part of working with the large language model is actually going through and trying to convince it there are problems with it and have it fix it. And in our demonstrations in the video, we'll actually
So you're almost turning into like quality assurance and that sort of.
Yeah, you're kind of QAing your own questions. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And then kind of telling it, no, it's still not working. Can you try it a different way?
Right.
And literally talk through with those exact words and have it come up with a different idea. In an example, we'll see it thinks that it's got the solution, and I know it hasn't. And so I actually tell it to do something different, so it would rewrite the code.
Gotcha.
I'm not rewriting it; it's rewriting it. But then it solved the problem.
So what AI is this one?
So this one is actually called Lovable. There are two other tools. One is called Lovable, another one called Bolt, which are more advanced. But normally what I use is simply ChatGPT and Gemini for most of this.
So the previous two, Bolt and Lovable, those are more catered towards coding?
They are actually full-fledged. They are specifically catered towards writing low-code platforms. They also allow you to deploy it out onto the web itself. So you could actually have it running and send URLs and links to people to try it out.
So those are more so what you're going to when you're doing like larger projects.
Larger projects, or you want to step up and go to another level. Yes, exactly.
But would you recommend then ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude for people?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the ground zero of everything?
Yeah, if you've started with ChatGPT and Gemini, stay with it, and that's what we're going to show in this example. All right, so now let's watch a video of something where, so this is a physics simulation. It's a projectile simulator. So I know it may be hard, so I'm going to read the text here. It says, build a HTML and JavaScript page that plots a projectile motion using plotly.js. Include input fields for sliders for initial velocity and launch angle. When the user changes the inputs, the graph should update. So basically, I just wanted to simulate throwing something. So it's already done it. I'm going to run it at a slightly faster speed. And here it's actually built that application. And you can see on the left-hand side, it says, okay, you're all good to go. It pops up the simulation here, and it's actually going to run it. But something here, I'm adjusting it. Great, it's showing me the distances. As I increase the throwing velocity, it goes further. As I increase the launch angle, it can go higher and lower. But it's great, but I wanted to do some more. I wanted to animate it. So I told it, can you add some animation? Well, I did, but it's not actually doing any animation. So something's wrong with the program. So you can look at what I'm typing in here and say, I'm not seeing the animation. Can you add a start-stop button? So I'm telling it to do something different, hoping that it might, by doing so, fix the problem. And this is that iterating through a solution.
Gotcha.
And so it's done it. It's added a start-stop button, and we're going to run the animation again. And guess what? There it is. It's working.
Right. So the idea just being to add those different elements to maybe have it like rewrite those parts of the code.
Exactly. Right. And so if you get stuck, make it do something else. And here I've had it add some planets as well. So you could try different gravities, and it's done it, but it only allows me to select one planet at a time. And so I've said, hey, can you instead make it add all the planets in a checklist? And it thinks it has, but it actually isn't. And so I'm saying, can you please try again? And again, I'm not writing code. I'm just talking to it in plain English. And so
it's almost like your little coding assistant there, and you're just kind of telling it what to do.
Yeah, it's the person doing the work.
Yeah, exactly.
You can see that the pull down for the planet is still a pull down, not a checklist. Right? I wanted to be able to select multiple planets so I could see all the different trajectories for all the different planets.
At once, yeah.
And so it's still a pull down. And so I am going through over here, and I'm trying to change it. And it will. And so one of the things I also do, if you notice, as a microphone, I actually don't even type at this point. I actually converse with it using the microphone, and I'm just chatting with it. I mean, literally chatting with it in English, and having my my Mac's dictation tool automatically type things in there. And so I'm just going to go towards the end over here on this one. And here it is, allowing me to do multiple planets and different trajectories for the different planets so that you can see how this works.
Right.
Something I learned about this, even though Mercury is smaller than Mars, they share the same gravity because apparently Mercury is more dense. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people knock AI in general for a lack of like creativity, but there's really a lot of creativity you can input into that to then get those
Yeah.
creative results out of it all.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of our creativity
Exactly.
with its
Exactly.
capabilities, and together you find. And one of the things you'll notice as you're bringing these tools, this one, by the way, is a function. This plots a function that you might type in, so a mathematical function. I think one of the things that you'll see as you're communicating with it is that it will actually make suggestions to add to whatever it is you're doing. It would say like, would you like me to add this additional feature? And you literally just say, yes, please. And it will go ahead and, okay, let me go ahead and update the code to try and do that. In this example, it's drawing two different functions, very common use case. I know there are tools already to do this, Mathematica or other ones, like even a calculator could do this at this point. But the idea here is that you could build this and come up with your own idea on what to visualize. Now, what I'm doing is I actually said, oh, this is great. Now I wanted to do it in 3D. However, in the 3D version, it doesn't actually render it. And I'm saying, and I'm literally typing, I am not seeing the rendering. And so it goes back and it looks at its own code and tries to fix it. And then we come through to another version. And this time it's working.
Right.
And it adds all these three-dimensional capabilities. A lot of this stuff that you see here, it's actually using open source tools behind the scenes. JavaScript is a full-fledged programming language that runs on the browser, and it uses open source libraries to do the actual visualization. Another one that it uses is something called d3.js, but all of this stuff is done behind the scenes.
So what do you mean by that with the open source? Like these are already existing assets that are then being brought in?
Exactly, yeah. So if you actually go, I have here D3. So D3 is a visualization library that does a lot of the visualizations. So there are different ways to visualize data, for example, how you do graphs or plots. And so what it does is it takes advantage of these open source tools, meaning other people have written it, put it up in the public for public to use. And it incorporates that so that the code that it's writing is just the part that you're asking to, and it leverages these other libraries. And so as you become more experienced with this, you say, use this specific library to do this.
Right.
But initially, you don't have to do any of it. It'll automatically know what is the right library, open source library to use for something.
And with the more use of building different things, you'll get more of a feel of what you think is more beneficial for you and move forward with that.
Right. Yep, that's right. So another example here, this is an example. I was trying to come up with something that's in literature, and I'm sorry it's small, but basically I wanted to do a word count on some sort of English literature work. So we just picked Pride and Prejudice, and I typed in there, create a program that would count the number of words or the most popular words. A word cloud is what they call it. And so it worked. I got the word, the ability to create these words, and then, but it's really limited. It only took a small piece of Pride and Prejudice, but I wanted to take the full text of it.
Right.
And so by iterating through it, I was able to get it to load the file itself and then generate it. But then there was a problem. The words are too big.
Right.
Well, why are the words too big? So now I'm going to say, it looks great, but the words are really large. Can you fix that? And so, again, I'm not writing code. I'm not adjusting the font size or doing anything. It's actually doing that. And you iterate over and over and over again until you get it to actually solve it.
Right. So you're speaking a bit about the limitations. What exactly would you say are the biggest limitations with coding in this format?
That's a great question. I think you're obviously not going to run full-fledged apps that would run on your phone, or entire applications that would have communication capabilities. In this most of the examples here are visualization. So you can kind of focus on that. You could do additional things like maybe processing data. Some of the things that you might use Excel for or things could be done in here as well, simply because you don't have to go to an external application. Another idea I had with this is sometimes you actually want to create graphics that you may want to put in your class, and you don't want to use some copyrighted material. So you might be able to ideate something and have it come up with an image that you could then take and put in there without having to violate some copyright
Right.
restrictions.
So these are like legitimate assets that could then be used into people's courses or study materials, whatever.
Yeah, in my opinion, yes, there are, of course, there are all these copyright issues going on as to the, is it really, yours? Does it belong to the people who may have been trained from? But I'm kind of skipping over that and assuming that these are things that belong to you. So I could take this simple screenshot and add it to my class,
right?
And not actually use the program, but just use the data that the program generated.
Right. Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
So the next one, this one was an easy. So this is actually an example of doing something just for the visualization. It basically shows the electronegativity of different elements on the periodic table, which is basically the affinity. My understanding is the affinity of certain elements on the outer layer of the electrons to be more sensitive to electrons. So there are more reactive gases, and those get a higher electronegativity. And all the physics professors here are going to email me after this, so I apologize. But it's a static visualization, and it created this for me. And so I could take this and include this in my class or in my book. Of course, I should say that this was generated using AI, but it belongs to me. Right. And this is basically a plain HTML and JavaScript application. So again, it doesn't need to run on the web or anything. I can just simply run it here, screenshot it, and take it from here.
Right.
So that's like a side use case where you're just using it for visualization as a one-time.
Yeah. Have you ever ran into any accuracy issues like that? Let's say, different elements aren't on the periodic table, or things are just inaccurate in general?
Yeah, great question. I actually didn't know what the electronegativity values were here. So at the tail end of it, I actually went to a source and I compared the two so that people could oh yeah, these numbers are right. I didn't check every element, but yes, these are accurate. But yes, like everything else, I think even on ChatGPT, it says it is prone to errors, verify.
Of course, yeah.
So there is no...
And at the very least, it gives you that jumping off point to make those manual corrections afterwards.
Exactly. So you could say, hey, I think you've got these numbers wrong. Like, for example, when we were looking at the projectile simulator, it was putting in the acceleration or the 9.8 meters per second squared for Earth and the different values for all the other planets, and I was comparing it. Yep.
Yeah, even when we were talking earlier about the image generation, how it can do text better, there's still hiccups if you were to do like factual elements. Like I think we did one with the presidents, and it was, things are mismatched and the numbers are a little bit off, but that's when you add that human element to enhance what the AI gave you as that base.
Exactly. And I think that goes back to everything that we're doing here is we're using it as a tool to augment, not replace us.
Exactly,
And so long as you keep that in mind, that really helps. I mean, yes, it is replacing certain things completely, but as of today, I think it's an augmenting tool for what we're doing here. This next example I have here is actually one which was building flashcards. So I just needed a topic for flashcards. And so I said, let's pick the French Revolution. And so I used Bolt to create it. Again, only using HTML, CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and JavaScript. And when you're writing the prompt, when you're asking the large language model, hey, create this, you would say, please create this using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So that's one of those prompt engineering things that you throw into your actual prompt, and make sure you put that in there, because by doing so, it'll create only a file a single file, or in this case, a few files that would have it, and that would run on your browser. Now, in this case, it actually split it up into 4 files, and I actually like that because flashcards could be used for many different use cases, and it actually created a separate file that has the actual flashcard question and answers. And so
is HTML sort of like the standard, the base of everything?
Yeah, so this is actually a good question. HTML kind of defines what's running, how things are laid out in your browser. CSS, Cascading Style Sheets, control the font, the color, and all those little intricate details that lets it fine-tune it. And then JavaScript is the code that runs behind it that leverages all of those things together.
So it all is kind of conjuncting.
They go together. They all work closely hand in hand. And in this use case, and that's what I hope the faculty could get out of this, is is you could use this very easily to run things in your browser to ideate your thoughts and come up with something.
And for the faculty that are listening now too, if you are seeing this and brainstorming any ideas that you want a live demonstration on, we can totally do that towards the end of the presentation when we're asking for questions. So, you know, when you see all these different tools being demonstrated, if you have any ideas that may be beneficial to your course specifically, go ahead and jot that down, and then hopefully we can circle back to that a little bit later.
Yeah, we'll try and live code here.
Yeah, a little live coding session.
Yeah. So something at the tail end of this, so I used, in this example, I actually used Bolt earlier on, as you saw, to create the flashcard system, which works great, here it is running. But it only created, I think, 5 or 10 questions. And so what I did was I went and took the sample right here. I took the sample of questions that it created in one of the files. And then I came to ChatGPT, which I think has a more robust or larger vocabulary, database, information, however you define it. And I said, can you create 100 questions using this format on the French Revolution? And so it went ahead and did that. And some of you may have seen this. It does this thing called reasoning now, where you can actually have it go through and come up with the thought process. And so ChatGPT actually went through it. It analyzed the structure of the output that it needs to. Then it went and thought about the French Revolution, and then it came with these 100 questions. And those questions in the format that I needed. So then I took this output, and then I saved it to a file, and then I'm now able to run that with the 100 questions rather than the 10 that it had.
And I know a lot of this, especially with it being called Faculty Lounge Live, is a lot catered towards faculty, but that specifically could really be used for students on the student side of things.
Exactly.
I forget the name of the website. That was like the flashcards that you could search the different topics. Like people would hand make these flashcards.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
But this one is as accurate as you need it to be for that specific topic that you want to, study.
Yeah, and you can take that, again, everything is encoded in those 4 files. You could take it and you could actually put it on a website, or you could host it just on your computer, or you could send it to your friends, and they can just run it by just double-clicking on the HTML file, and it'll actually run it.
So that file, all you're doing is just clicking it, and it opens up in the browser?
Exactly. So here, for example, is the plotter simulator. I actually have it saved as a HTML file, and here it is running, and I can put in, sine. This is the 3D version. And then I could give it some small values, 3 minus 3, 3, and update the graph. And there it is.
Wow.
Right there. Right? So it's just a single file, and it's a great way to just package it up and put it somewhere.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of time when you're trying to study those specific things, you're looking for someone else's thing that they've already built.
Yeah.
But now, especially with the use of AI and these different tools, you can just go ahead and build them yourself.
Yeah, and fill it with the content across.
That's just completely catered to you.
It creates the framework.
Yeah,
exactly.
Very cool.
All right. So, and then let me go back over here, and I think I did that. The French Revolution. Oh yeah. So this is the part where I actually took the output of the 10 questions that was generated by Bolt, and then here is ChatGPT. And again, I didn't ask a coding question. My question was simply use the following format. And I did use the word JSON over here, which I guess technically is a little bit of coding, but I could have said use the following file format instead. Now it understood it, and here it is actually talking to itself on what it's trying to do, and it's going through the different steps of the reasoning model, and coming up with the actual output. And here's the output itself. And now what I did was I saved it using an editor. And in this case, I like to use Sublime, but you could use other editors. Like if you're using Windows, you could use TextPad++.
And that's just to have everything saved locally?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Now, one of the questions that may come up is, how do I take this and put it on the web? There are different ways that you could do that. One of the sites is called GitHub. GitHub allows you to upload pages on there, and then web pages, web files on there, and then host them on a GitHub page that belongs to you. It's free, and I actually
So
have
then
a
you just need
demonstration.
like a domain or anything, or
No,
it's
it
just
actually
all
uses
in?
yourname.github.io.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yep. So you don't even need to pay for a domain name
Yeah.
or anything like that. So here it is running with 100 examples over here.
Very cool.
Okay. And so speaking of GitHub, in this example here, so remember that function plotter that we created?
Right.
So here is an example where we take the file and we see that it works. Everything is good.
Yeah.
Here's the actual.
And this is in Gemini, right?
This is in Gemini,
Okay.
yeah. So in this case, I had used Gemini to create that.
Yeah.
I saved the file using an editor, and I call it plotter.html, right? And then I go to GitHub. I already have a GitHub account myself,
Right.
and so here I'm going to. That's my, it's my last name. That's my actual account. I create a new repository, and I'm playing it here so that faculty could go back and record this, and I will watch this to see how it's done. But at the end, I think we're going to share my contact information, so they can always reach out to me. And so we create what's called a repository, and then we upload the file, in this case, the plotter that I created, the HTML file. All right, and it's saved there. And then if we go over to the pages, and we have to just select something called the main branch. GitHub is actually a platform used for software development, for doing co-development with others and version control and all that. But we see here that we've uploaded plotter.html, and here's the actual HTML file. But we don't want to see the HTML file. We actually want to see it, the plotter,
front end,
right?
Of everything, yeah.
And so what happens is in GitHub, it gives you, just a few seconds, we'll see the URL come up. Sometimes it takes a few seconds for that page to come up, and I actually have to go back in there. And if you go to pages here, there's my actual URL, neelakanta.github.io/gh pages. And so that's the prefix. And so I put that prefix in there, and then I put in there, that's just a sample page that's there. But then I know that I had created plotter.html, so I put that in there. And then now I have a permanent web URL that I can use to share with my students or with others.
Easy to just link it in. And
yep, exactly. And it'll just run on the internet. It's still running on your browser because everything is actually rendered and executed on your Chrome browser or Firefox.
So when you build more sophisticated tools, is loading time, does that start to become an issue?
That depends on, that's a good question. It depends on the amount of content. Suppose you're actually having something that is actually processing a lot of data and needs to download that data down. So say the Pride and Prejudice, now that was about a meg worth of data. It's not too big. But if you have hundreds of megs of data and it needs to download that data to process it, then yes, latency would be an issue.
But then in this case, it's already done.
It's all
loading,
done. Everything is running on the browser. And that's the key thing to take away. Exactly, right. So the concept of low code, there are many different definitions. In this case, for this specific presentation, I wanted to focus on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript because everything just kind of runs locally on your laptop, your computer, or you could host it using GitHub online as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I know we were talking about your contact information, but is there like any services for assistance for any faculty that would want to use these tools? Or is it more so a...
Yeah, I think this is actually something that we're trying to build up in the AI task force. And so if this is something that's of, folks want to actually go further and dig deeper, at the end, I'll have my contact information. And if we get some traction, I think definitely we'll do some more deep dives. Perhaps we can have some live sessions where we can all come together and you can come with your idea and we can actually iterate through a solution and see how that works. So that might be something fun to do and see where it goes. But yeah, I can definitely bring it up to the AI task force as well, which by the way, I think folks know it, but it's fau.edu/AI. That's the landing page for everything AI related at FAU. So we hope you visit it as I think the AI playground stuff that we have to talk about shortly. But yeah, that's there as well. So I think we have some time for questions and and maybe we'll go from there.
Yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out in the chat. We believe our chat moderator is Moises. So yeah, if any questions roll in, don't hesitate to ask them. I know it's kind of overwhelming, but it's also, pretty cool to see how much your creativity can shine in these different tools.
Yeah, we have we have logins to Gemini and ChatGPT here. So for those who are wondering, I am using the paid account simply because it allows me to use all the different models to try and experiment with different ones.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT is, I think, $20 a month. Gemini has a $9 a month account, but it can only be used on your personal accounts at the moment.
Yeah. So one more question that kind of came up when we were going through all this for me. Do you see this sort of style of coding to be beneficial for computer science majors specifically, like almost seeing if you can correct what's going wrong?
Yeah.
Is that a valid thing to use it for?
So the whole field of coding for people who do this for a living is changing week to week, month to month. Cursor and GitHub Copilot are some of the more popular ones out there. And then there's this new thing called vibe coding, which is sort of like you're gelling with the AI and you're kind of working back and forth. The same way that we were kind of doing this at a very superficial level, doing very basic applications. The newer tools are able to actually analyze the code you've written,
right,
and fix bugs.
Right.
And so I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next few years to see how this evolves. Oh, got some questions, I think.
Yeah, I can't tell.
Oh, it went fast on the screen.
I thought I saw something that said no questions. But
no questions? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, I think computer science will change as well. I think it's important to balance knowing how to write code, but also knowing how to. We have this, we call team coding, where we develop code with another software engineer, and I think this is just a way to complement that as well. I think code bases are huge, and I think using AI to digest, like, where in the code does this happen? A question like that.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, if you could almost tell the AI to say, okay, build me this code, but mess something up in the middle, and see if I can.
And see if you can fix it. That's true. A challenge mode. Onboarding a new software engineer in a large company is really hard because there's this huge code base. Now, if the engineer could go in there and say, hey, I need to fix this part, where would I go to do this? And can you point me in the right direction? Could be a great augmenting tool.
Yeah. So it looks like we actually do have a question here. Feel free to unmute and ask us.
Yes, Mahesh, Nick, thank you for this presentation. So Christian is asking, what's your opinion on the vibe coding? Do you implement it in your workflow?
Right. So I'm not sure if the audience heard the question, but what's your opinion on the vibe coding and the workflow?
Vibe coding. I think it's about, it became really hot in the past 2 months. And so, no, I have not implemented anything. I'm still like always playing catch up like everyone else in this. I am experimenting with Cursor. They all cost money. It's on average, they all go for $20 a month. I don't know where that number comes from. But the idea of sort of using this AI tool and you're almost conversing with it and going back and forth seems to be very interesting. The issue of trust, the code that it generates, does it work? I would never use this in anything that's mission critical or life safety at the moment. But if it's to ideate through something and to come up with like, hey, let's play with this, let's try and do this, it would definitely be something where you can just over a weekend come up with an idea and see whether it makes sense. You could do a minimum viable product really easily. And I think these tools like Cursor and GitHub Copilot, which, by the way, they're not AI tools. They use an AI behind the scene, right? So they use ChatGPT or Gemini or something behind the scenes to do that. They just have there is an area of it where it's customized to specifically do coding rather than English text.
Right.
So ask me in 6 months what I think of vibe coding.
Yeah. So we'll keep the floor open just for a little bit more, but I have one more question for you, and I don't mean to put too much pressure on you, but what would your advice to faculty who feel like they're being more or less weeded out or trying hard to stay relevant in this world of AI, sort of creating so many assets and so many tools, what would you have to say for people who feel that way about
Yeah, I think a lot of us feel that. I work in IT, and our whole area is being changed as well, with a lot of tools doing automation behind the scenes.
Right.
So I think more rather than replace, I would use redefine what our roles are. I've pivoted from VAX terminals, VAX mainframes to
Right.
the desktop PC to the cloud and now to AI enhanced tools. I think we have to keep redefining and reinventing ourselves and using this. I don't think I think the fact that faculty do more than just teach, right? They mentor, they're there for the students, they offer critical thinking. All these other things are still there and still super important. And ultimately you still have that human connection, which to a certain degree, I know there are AI tools that could do that, but I think rather than replace, I think it does redefine.
Yeah. And I feel the same way with the arts. Like I said, I'm a media specialist with, all of those different tools that are coming in. It's more so a hand-in-hand thing. It's better to embrace it than to feel like it's taking things over. So it's good advice.
I think sticking our head in the sand is probably not an option at this point. Yes.
But it looks like there's no additional questions. It was a pleasure talking to you. It was really interesting to see the back end of everything, especially with no coding experience, like I'm sure many people out there are in a similar boat as me. So thanks again for this conversation. We have a playground with Willie Freeman coming up on 4/18, and then another Faculty Lounge Live with Brian Montalvo on 4/21. So yes,
my contact
and
info.
if we could switch over to his computer, it's his contact information, LinkedIn, and that GitHub site as well.
Yeah, and the GitHub site will be up by tomorrow, so I'll create that and I'll upload the stuff that I've generated. And if you have ideas and you want to try something, definitely email me. Maybe we can try a few different experiments and see how it goes.
So thanks again, everyone, for watching and tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Faculty Lounge Live.
All right, thank you.